Hi guys, today I will talk about the Springboard perspective on international expansion by emerging market multinationals. So this interesting theory by Yadong Luo and Rosalie Tang is trying to explain the rise of multinationals from emerging markets, such as from China, India, but also countries such as Brazil or Mexico. What explains the rise of these companies such as Lenovo, Haier, but also some of the smaller ones such as Nando's from South Africa or Havaianas from Brazil? Why these companies from emerging markets are being able to become quite fierce competitors to the Western multinationals from the traditional markets such as the US, Japan, or Europe. So first of all, this theory is focusing more on the larger emerging markets, such as China, India, Brazil, Russia, Mexico, and South Africa. It stresses the importance of the large domestic market for these companies. And this was often an attraction for foreign companies to come in that kind of forced the domestic players in these countries to lift up their game. They also learned from foreign competitors from the developed countries and started to be more aggressive in expanding abroad. The theory also stresses that many of these companies are state-owned, so that's quite a different ownership structure compared to most of the Western multinationals. Now, what is really new about this theory compared to the established theories of international business is that often when these emerging multinationals have started expanding, they did not really have strong advantages. They did not start out with really strong brands or technologies. And in essence, they actually did not go abroad to just exploit the advantages as, say, the Dunning's theory of OLI would purport, but they went abroad seeking for something, and the internationalization was a means for them to acquire foreign brands, to improve their management capabilities, and often these strategic assets that were acquired abroad were brought back home to make sure that they are competitive in the home market, which is still quite important to these companies, given that they are from large, fast-growing emerging markets. Internationalization is a springboard, a kind of a stepping stone to achieving some of these goals, such as overcoming latecomer advantages, getting more support from domestic governments, overcoming some of the trade barriers, and in the end, hopefully becoming kind of aspiring world leader. In some cases, this happened. Haier was able to acquire not just smaller players in its industry from developed countries such as Fisher and Paykel Appliances, Senio. Eventually, became a world leader, acquiring GE. These companies are often more risk-taking. They take quite aggressive, larger acquisitions, often sometimes from Western perspective would even overpay for some of their foreign moves. But there's extra benefits that accrue to them in terms of learning and acquiring the strategic assets that are brought home and then also leveraged in other international markets. There's some unique challenges to these emerging market multinationals. Obviously, there's institutional constraints in the home countries. Emerging economies are not just defined by being poorer, but also having weaker institutions. So these, in some ways, are quite unique to emerging market multinationals. Often they actually leverage them by expanding in other emerging markets where they actually can navigate these institutional constraints better. So to sum up, this was an important article that gave rise to a lot of subsequent research on emerging market multinationals. The original article from mid-2000s was now refurbished into a full-fledged theory, a general theory of Springboard M&Es that was published in 2018, which is trying to generalize this Springboard perspective a bit and apply it perhaps to a larger set of countries, even some some companies from developed countries can in some ways behave in a fashion that is similar to the Springboard MNEs from emerging economies. But mostly this theory is trying to explain some of the unique features of emerging market multinationals and offers kind of complementary and additional analytical lens to understanding and explaining how companies from countries such as China, India, or other emerging markets, in particular the large ones, grow internationally.